you come in, you've got a brand new whiteboard, they've all set it up, it's all perfect, they've got brand new whiteboard markers. You go to work and they don't rub off properly. They kind of half rub off, and you struggle your way through. What the hell's going on with this whiteboard? This is a shit whiteboard. No, they give me a crap whiteboard. Then later on you realise they put a plastic cover over whiteboards that's trapped under this frame, and you can't easily see it. Because it's like cling film, and it doesn't really work. And then at some point you make a bit of a mark. Hold on, there's plastic on here. And then when you cut round here with a razor blade, it comes off, and there's a perfect whiteboard underneath that works perfectly. But you've been struggling with this piece of bloody plastic for like 2 or 3 days. Go, you never do it again. You always check, is the bloody plastic still on this thing? Yeah, very embarrassing. Yeah, I mean, I'm good on Blackboard. They're really not too technical. Who did the Udemy course? Did you do Udemy?
Yeah.
Oh, was a Blackboard there, eh?
Yes.
Going like crazy.
Yeah.
Bill was terrible. That was the first out of 5 courses. That was the first course I ever taught with him, and it was on 3 movie cameras at the same time.
Right.
First time I did a whole course. And his illustrations were awful. And he wouldn't stay on subject. And I had to listen to every morning, because he said, I'll do the morning, you do the afternoon. I'm going out. So, luckily I watched the first one. I thought, shit, how do I translate that? And then every day I spent all afternoon trying to explain what Bill was talking about. Every morning. Man, what a nightmare. And then 5 nightmares later, every year. It was just, you see the camera watching the audience?
Some, not all the time, but it
3
went back and
cameras
forth.
running, one's right up front, one's at the back, and one's watching the audience.
Yep.
And if you watch the audience, when Bill's talking, they're like this.
All right.
Like this, like that. Like,
That's so good.
freaking out. Nobody's writing into it, they're just going. And then they're laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing, and they're not doing any. They're not writing anything. And then I come in the afternoon, and I'm like, shit! I got to make up all this ground. I thought I'd be doing new stuff. I just got to go for it. I got my best illustrations, all my coloured pens. I'm going for it. Like, and he made me look so good, right? And I'm just sweating, you know. And when they show the audience, they're all. Everybody's writing. The whole lot of them. They're all writing stuff down. I'm just going for it. And I thought that was the only one I was ever going to do. It's supposed to be his last course. And then a lot of people from Victoria, that part of Australia near Melbourne, they said, oh, you know, you came down to, Bill and Geoff came to Melbourne University and taught this course and took all our students off us. Most of them were internationals. They weren't even Australian, a lot of them. And then you don't want to say that to Bill. Right? You don't want to say that sort of thing. Territorial. He doesn't believe in territorialism with permaculture. It's anybody, everybody, anywhere. And he just went, what about that? He says, we better give him a rally every bloody year. We'll go back and do it again next year and next year. You know, it was like 5 years later we got the last course. And the last course he was on a walker. He was on an old people walker, you know. And I was having to start his stories and finish them. He kept falling asleep in the middle of lectures, you know, and everything. Okay. You heard about this online course that I teach. And I had a version 1.0, which was when I just got filmed doing a PDC. Like it was 2 cameras filming me in a classroom like this. And it worked. When I say it worked, the students performed very well. And my final design exercise, which is done at the end of every course, is often the test for a teacher. Like you don't know whether students have got it or not. And like if you really want to be a teacher, your results are only indicated by your students. It doesn't matter how much you damn well know, right? And how clever you think you are. If you're not getting it across to the students, you're not teaching, you're not a good teacher. That's it. You know, your ability as a teacher is only indicated in your students, not what you know. It's got nothing to do with that. You might not be able to teach them any information at all, but if you can give them the passion to learn, that's all it takes. Because you can't teach everything, especially in a PDC in permaculture. You couldn't teach everything. Classic statement by Bill Mollison. This is Bill talking. The more I learn about permaculture, the less I realise I know about permaculture. And the more you learn about permaculture, the more you'll realise you don't know about permaculture. Why? Because it's infinity. It's an eternal journey. It's never, ever going to stop. So, okay. So how could I teach you everything there is in infinity? It's not possible. The best you can do is give people a passion to learn a subject. And you know that when you were at school. If a teacher gave you a passion for a subject, you got it. You loved it because you loved what the teacher gave you. Right? That's what it's about. Right? So when I did my first online, I was worried. Was it going to work? What were the students' design exercise going to be like? Because that's my first indicator that there's maybe I got a result. And I've seen plenty face to face. I wasn't sure. The first design exercise came back, which is individual students when it's online, not groups, not little groups where you get in a face-to-face PDC. It's individuals. 20% were better than I've ever seen. 1 in 5 was better than I've ever seen. In fact, 1 in 5 was better than I can do. I'm probably better than I'll ever be able to do. I'm saying, wow, that's what I want. That's what I'm after. That quality. And that was online. That's that much better than face-to-face. I'm on the summit. So the next version was version 2.0. Instead of being filmed in a classroom, which is whatever you get's what you get. Right? I tried to do my best, but whatever you get's what you get. I did a studio. I spent 2 years in a studio, almost every day, filming a PDC. It was like eating an elephant. It was, one bite at a time. And I decided to do this crazy thing. I decided to take Bill's manual, because I'd worked with Bill enough, Bill's manual, and translate it into what I think he was saying, paragraph by paragraph, almost the whole book. There are some bits where he's just being naughty, and there's no point in translating it. So, and then I took almost every single illustration, which is black and white pen, and turned it into an animation. Well, we put a lot of effort into this. So we even spent 3 months choosing the colors for the animations, and another 3 months creating the icons for the animations, like the trees, the houses, the cows, the dogs, the cats, everything. Like, we did it all. Right? They're all ours. Right? A lot of work, and on and on and on. And we carry on improving because we've got a big body of work. But one thing we did was, what about the final design? This final design exercise. I hate fantasy. If you want to fantasize, just go away and fantasize. You don't need me. You can go and fantasize as much as you like. I don't care. It doesn't worry me at all. I don't mind. If that's what you want to do, go for it. I don't care at all. But if you want to do real work where kids are starving and people are getting bombed and terrible things are happening, which they are, and if you go out there and do aid work, you're going to see it. Then I'd like you to be quite serious about what you're designing and what you can do, right? So the design exercise is what gives you a clue into it, right? What do you want me to do? What do you really want to do? So I spent 4 months with 16 people deciding what that was, right? What a final design exercise is and should be for anybody. And this is it, the FDE form introduction. Those of you who've done a PDC, you've done it, right? Anybody else done it? Online PDC. This is the final design exercise for my online PDC. I think it's the best consultancy document in the world. It was enormous amounts of thought. It was my whole team debating about what we should ask a client. What's every question you could ask a client, so that you could, if you get all this info in, then you really have a very good chance of being able to design very well. See, it's often not about the answer, it's about the question. So many things are in life. so many things are in research and studies. It's not so much about can you answer a question, can you ask the right damn question. And like when you go to consult for somebody, and some of you have talked to me about this already, we had a little conversation back and forwards about like Senegal. Who in Senegal? You in Senegal? Some guy in a little tiny hut in the middle of nowhere in Senegal? What kind of client am I talking to? So if I don't know that, what am I designing blind? And you want me to do it without a climate? Well, you may as well put my glasses on backwards and tell me to design. I can't see properly. If I can't see properly, if I'm looking through blurred vision, what do you expect me to design? I can't even see properly. You know, climate is the first thing that makes you come into focus a bit. Otherwise, what am I designing for? Like, you know, the tropics, the desert, where, you know, what? So you've got to ask the right questions. And so many times when you're doing a consultancy for a client, which you're usually designing for someone else, it's a client, you've got to ask a lot of questions because they don't know. That's why they got you as a consultant. And you've got to ask kind of, it's the brief. In a lawyer's term, I want the brief. We call it the brief. What's the brief? Who am I defending? Are you a defense lawyer or?
No, I'm a corporate lawyer.
All right, yeah.
But I still know what you mean.
Business lawyer. Yeah. My partner is a Fortune 500 business consultant, Harvard lawyer. I picked the right partners. No chatting, illegally attacking us. So that's what this is about, right? And why I'm showing it to you, because I think it's very important, because you can waste a lot of time asking a client the questions. Now, what do you want the land for? What do you want it to achieve? Where exactly are you? What kind of landscape exactly is it? Now, there are many questions. So I just want to slide through this quickly. I can give it to you if you want to give me an email list. It's a live document when I give it on a course. Here it's a PDF. So it's not live. It's made up to be a live document that you answer. And it's quite a journey, but it's everything that you actually need to know condensed into a form. Right? This gets you on the spot, right on the spot. So a lot of people, I get young people come to me today. I had a young man right now in Zaytuna Farm, just about to leave today, I think, from Manchester, 18 years old. Lovely young man, Joel. Comes from a really depressed part of England, just outside of Manchester, mostly Somali criminals in the area. You know, it's not old England, it's industrialized immigrant England, and pretty depressed. He's obviously a bit autistic, like a lot of young people. He's definitely on the spectrum. I have a lot of trouble with him with spatial awareness. Like, very dangerous on a farm if you don't know spatial awareness, because you're swinging dangerous tools and someone walks right up to you. It's like, hey, what did we say about spatial awareness? You know. But Joel's main objective to come to Zaytuna Farm, having not done a PDC, hasn't done a PDC, he's read, and he keeps reading the manual, was like, oh, I just want to learn how to be like you. It's like, what, just like that? Like you can buy it off the shelf, you know, like plug a smart drive in your ear or something, you know, here's 40 years experience, you know. It doesn't happen like that. You can't just do that, you know, but why not? Well, there's a lot of experience involved, you know, and there's a lot of things I can't even explain, the volume of stuff that I, you know, and why the hell would you want to do that anyway, you know, like, but it's a modern thing. Young people just think a lot of things are kind of instantaneous. You can just download it. And there's some things you can't. These are like master skills. It takes 10,000 hours to master a subject. We know that. There's studies on this. If you want to learn to play the piano really well, like concert pianist, takes 10,000 hours of practice. That's 5 years of 40 hours a week. And at the end of that time, your fingertips are 10,000 times more sensitive than the average human being. I've done 10,000 hours on compost. I've done my 10,000 hours making compost. You probably never met such a weird composter as I am. I've gone out of my way to compost the really strange things. If it's lived, it can live again is the first rule of compost. I've composted things you couldn't believe. I composted a penguin. But I have a student who composted a whale for a museum. Now, I've composted the weirdest things. I've done it over so many years. I reckon I've done my 10,000 hours. I've done my 10,000 hours on designing. It's hard to short circuit a master chef. We're talking about a master chef who's a Michelin chef, I understand, someone. Yeah. It's an extreme mastering of a culinary ability beyond something rational. But like we're trying to master a multidiscipline subject, and it's a great journey. It's a wonderful journey. It's really good fun. It's really stimulating. It's really good for your longevity. I like studying longevity and what makes people live a long time or stay very healthy into long life. And one of them we know is learning new things. Physical ability and mental ability always go together. So learning new physical skills, as well as learning new mental stimuli. And boy, you have plenty of mental stimuli. It's an infinite journey. It's an infinite journey. It will never stop, never ever stop. Right? You'll always be able to learn a little bit more because of the combinations of things. Many combinations, so many combinations. So what I did with Joel was, because I got fed up with it, and he's a lovely young man, but very, very, like a lot of autistic people, just endlessly keeps going, right? Never stops asking or never stops repeating. That's why most inventions in the world have been invented by people who are autistic. Right? They don't usually give up. I gave him this and said, read this and answer it all. And it just consumed him. I said, read this and read the manual. Read this and look at what's in here and try and work out where that comes from in the manual. And it totally absorbed him, which is great because he left me alone a bit. They're always asking me questions. He still asks me questions. Right? But this is what we have to do to generally approach. So this is the table of content, right? And it's quite long. So what we've got in here is, first off, we need the name. We need the person's name, where it is, right? And then we need their personal details. And we need the site. We need the location of this site. And then we need the client's brief. What do you want? Right? And there's a whole set of multi-answer questionnaires in here. Are you a vegetarian? Are you a vegan? Are you a carnivore only? I mean, what kind of diet do you have? Do you want to be fully self-sufficient, partly self-sufficient? You want to be completely off-grid? You want complete energy self-sufficiency? You want a part deal? What exactly do you want? What is the brief? It can be very varied today. Because most of us realize we're probably not going to get all the way there in one jump. So what do you want? You want to stage it? I need to know what I'm designing. There's quite a lot of questions in that section alone. And then you make notes on that. We need the location of the property and what size property is it? What type of property is it? So we need property data. Right? Is it hill country? Is it flat country? Etc. Is it swampy country? Is it dry country? Is it worn out country? Is it eroded country? We need to know what kind of country it is. Is it face south, north, west, what? Lots of information. We need a boundary map. We do need a contour map, even if it's very basic. And you can't get a contour map easily, maybe. You can go on Google Earth You can find everything on Google Earth. It's all there on Google Earth. And then if you learn to drive Google Earth, there's show or view in Google Maps. So you can click that and go into Google Maps, right? Which is Google Earth, Google Map, line up. So it's the same map, same scale comes in Google Maps. And then it's little postage stamps at the bottom, little icons. Go into terrain, right? And then back up. In other words, back away from the map in altitude, and at a certain point, bang, 5 meter contours come up. They're not real accurate, but they're contours. And they're only 5 meters in height difference. And really, if you wanted to do a whole country, they wouldn't be too bad. If you want to do a very, very, very large area, they wouldn't be too bad. But if you're talking about doing a few acres, they're bloody useless. They give you an average. Like, you can't design accurately from those contours. If you want to design at a distance, you're going to need LiDAR or something as accurate. Something like LiDAR. Otherwise, you do have to be on the ground. Bill always said the map is not the territory. You have to go on the ground. Bill didn't know we were going to get LiDAR. Bill didn't even know we were going to get mobile phones. I remember teaching Bill how to Google. He thought it was hilarious because he was a bibliophile. He had 1 million books, and I'm not joking. He nearly had 1 million books. He had a huge library. So, yeah. I can remember my first aid projects. We thought faxes were really high tech, and there was only 2 lawyers' offices in the capital city of Quito in Ecuador where we could receive a fax. We thought that was Star Trek. A fax? When did the last time you used a bloody fax? You know. Look where we are. My students are like live. My Zaytuna Farm's live on the phone. I can get Morocco live on the phone if you want. Walk around swales in Morocco. We can go to Saudi Arabia right now. We can go anywhere you like that's in daylight. Right? I can walk you around. You know, is this cover clock thick enough, Geoff? Nah, put a bit more in. Live. Crazy. So, like, it's another world, and we need to use it fast. We need to use that tech. You can't really back away from it when we've got so much to do. And there's less and less excuse to be able to design. So, hey, I'm a baby boomer. I was born in 1954. I'm 70 this year. If I can damn well do it, you can, right? Because I'm a tech dinosaur. I mean, what do I know? I can use the bit I can use. I don't need to use the rest of it. Sure, like I have a website manager, a social media manager. I have a big tech team. There's about 26 in us. Behind me is like 26 people not run properly. That's not an architect. Really? That shouldn't be the definition of an architect. That's some kind of house sculpture. It's like ridicule, like in the cost of energy, when energy's going up so much. It should be absolute common sense. Yeah, sure, you can get all that right and put some fancy shit on the house if you want, but if you haven't got that right, what's the point? You just want to burn money? It's silly. And it's actually like immoral, like kids are hungry out there, kids are suffering. Forget the adults, just the kids, without the adults. Kids are dying today as we're talking because of stupid lack of technology. Malaria and cholera are killing most of them right now, as we're talking. Just because they don't know about grey water systems, stormwater systems, and toilets. Very simple technology. Stormwater, grey water, and toilets. Very simple. Nothing technical there at all. Anybody could understand it. Anybody, doesn't matter where they come in educational class at all. So that's not right.
What is stormwater?
Stormwater is what runs off the road.
Oh, okay.
Hardware, what runs off the hardscape of the city. Storm, the runoff from a storm.
And
created
how
by
does this
hardware.
affect this disease?
Yes, plastic and stormwater kill kids through malaria.
Mm-hmm.
Number one question in permaculture. See, I average now 35,000 questions on a PDC online. You can't ask that many questions in a face-to-face. You ain't got time. There's over 250 questions in the one lecture, water. You haven't got time to ask 250 questions in that lecture, so it can't possibly happen face-to-face. I have 12 teachers' assistants. They're all over the world, but they're online answering those questions with me, and I answer some face-to-face on video. So over a few years, we got the team to analyse all the questions and put them in the top order down to the least asked question, and it's a 6,000-page document. Then you can put an algorithm over it. Don't ask me how to do it. You put an algorithm over it so that the computer can give you the answers if you ask that question the way it's been answered before. Number one question in permaculture: what do you do about mosquitoes when you create so much water? It's people. Obviously, most of these people ask that question have never kept an aquarium, or they're not fishermen. Most fishermen would know straight away what the answer is to that, or if you've kept an aquarium, right, and kept fish in a tank, right, because fish stop mosquitoes, because mosquito larvae are in water and they breathe air and they have to wiggle up to the top and they don't break the surface tension to suck air in. And that is a perfect lolly for for any kind of fish. Any kind of fish can eat that. Any kind of fish, no matter how small. So as soon as you've got water big enough and clean enough for fish, you don't have mosquitoes, if you have fish. And that's pretty easy to do. And often happens on its own, because most people don't realise fish are spread by ducks. Fish eggs stick to ducks' legs. A lot of fish. We need to be kind of ecologists now. We need to be a little bit of everything. We need to be a generalist across the board, but we don't have to be an expert. We can't teach you to be an architect in 72 hours, but if you're already an architect, we'll take you. It's okay. Right? If you're already an ecologist, we'll take you. It's fine. You're in that camp. Right? But you don't have to get in that camp. You don't have to be. We've got them on board, and they'll help. So it's like, number 2 is what's contour? And embarrassingly down the line somewhere is, how do you see those lines on the landscape? You wouldn't ask that in a face-to-face course. I think you'd be a bit too embarrassed. Like someone asking, how do you see the lines that are on the map? What do those lines look like on the hill? Like as if they're actually there. Because they're not there, they're an indicator of height on level. So there's lots we can analyse in the questions about how people are now removed from the outside world. They're not actually engaged anymore. So when we look at sector analysis, we need to know about the sun angles, the sun, the winds, the water flows, the wildfires, the access, because most of us today are going to drive into the house. Not many of us are going to walk in. Mostly we're a car culture, so our driveway is kind of a very specific structure in the landscape, the way we drive our car to our house. What are the negative inputs? What are the aesthetics we might want to keep? What kind of wildlife do we have? And that's a good indicator of a site. And therefore we end up with a sector map of guidelines. Guidelines of sectors. This is energy coming through the site. Energy on site that's coming through it. And then a design concept of development of water. So access structures and WAS, this is Water Access Structures Map. So when you go onto a property, the main frame before anything is water access structures. You look at the landscape and number 1 is water. Why? Well, life is based in water. Water increases the potential of life on a property. Now, water is very constant. It behaves in certain ways. There are not many things that are constant out there. In fact, in the hippie era, we used to say the only constant is change, man. Well, it's not quite true. Some things are very constant, and we can rely on them. Water has a few of them. So, you know, we can't make water go uphill for free. It's heavy. 1 kilo, 1 litre, one cubic metre, 1 ton. You don't want to lift 1 ton up a hill. It's heavy. Water will come downhill for free, come down easy. So water has duties to perform as an element, a main element we design. Number 1 is to create life. It's a life-creating element. If you're not on a blue planet, you're on a dead planet. You're looking for a life on a. How you going?
Hi, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I remember you.
Thank you.
97% of the water on Earth is salt water. Only 3% is fresh water. 97% is salty. 3% is fresh. And 14% of that is underground. Aquifer water. 11% is available to us. The rest is too deep to be rechargeable. So the most water we have available to us actually is underground, and it's only 11% of 3% of the whole water on Earth. And then we have a very small amount in the clouds and a very small amount in rivers and ponds and soil and life. There's really not a lot of water available to us compared to how much salt water there is on Earth, which is enormous.
Sorry, quick question. Can salt water be beneficial on the site? Or how can you utilize salt
Only
water?
the minerals in the salt water is somewhat available, somewhat beneficial. Not too much of it. You can't bring in too much sodium, but some of the minerals, like all of the minerals of the land, are in the ocean, and so a small amount of salt on site from the ocean is okay. Salt water from the ocean in the wind is really abrasive, it cuts. But if it's just settling out, it's quite good. But it's only a small amount before you get too much sodium salt. And we can't convert it into fresh water economically, like with appropriate energy. It's too energy consuming. So we can farm the ocean sustainably, we can garden the ocean sustainably. Not much of that going on. Some in Polynesian traditions. So if you trace back the Polynesians from the Hawaiians all the way to the Maori, there is records of gardening the ocean, farming the ocean pretty nicely. Outside of that, not too much. There is some. Mostly we're dealing with condensation from trees and rainfall. So when we say the word precipitation, we don't just mean rain. Most of us think of rain only. Right? There's a very large amount of condensation. If you have the surfaces, now if you take the forest off, you lose most of the condensation. It's not noticed as much here in the humid climates, but if you take the forest off the desert, you can lose 80% of your precipitation. That's an enormous amount comparatively in a desert. That's why one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons deserts are easily damaged. It's easy to take the vegetation and the low growth forest trees off the desert, because there are trees in a lot of deserts, not all deserts. Shifting sand dunes, not so much, but not all deserts are shifting sand dunes. There's a lot of different types of desert. Most of them had vegetative cover, grasses as well as forbs, as well as trees. Australia's desert is mostly forested still, as it's recently been damaged. And that gives you a lot of condensation. So the streams here are mostly running on condensation, not rain, off this forest, the majority. So and that's pretty clean water. The condensation is pretty clean. So evaporation cools the air. That's how refrigerators work. Evaporation cools the air. Condensation warms the air. So the top of the forest on a hot day in Hungary is transpiring to the atmosphere heavily and cooling the air. On cold mornings, when you get a blue sky like this morning, it was cold last night, the condensation drip is extreme and it's warming the air under the forest. What a beautiful thing. It's going in two directions. Evaporation, condensation. And they're constant. They're some of the constants about water. Water expands as it freezes. At 4 degrees centigrade, it's most dense. It cools itself through evaporation. It's called steam. It boils. It doesn't get over 100 degrees centigrade if it's pure water. So, to get the most out of water, we need to pattern water into a landscape, and we're going to be patterning it around the form of the landscape. Now, the landscape has a patterned form, which you can see from up in the air in a plane, or you can see it in our contour maps. Well, now you can see it on LiDAR. And if you can see it, but your clients can't, your job is to translate what you can see so they can see. Because it's common that you can be contour dyslexic. I'm dyslexic. If I get excited, I'll spell badly on the board. If I write sweat potatoes, I mean sweet potatoes. Right? It's because I'm getting excited as I'm teaching. Right? And my emotions will make me more dyslexic. I'm the opposite on maps. When I see maps, I can see it very clearly. I can see the land. Some people can't. I can't see what it is that I'm looking at. Now, your clients might be like that. So, the more you can show them in a map or maps, multiple maps, the more of a chance you've got them to understand what it is you're talking about. Because believe me, as you learn more about permaculture, you end up being able to talk about things people can't understand. What the hell are you talking about? And I feel, and I've felt for a while, that I don't know how to say what I can see. I don't know how to express what I know. That there's like a frustration that there aren't the descriptive words to say what I'm trying to tell you. It's like trying to describe emotions without the words. So we're going into a new phase. As more and more of us will be in this stage, that you'll go like, there's a whole new description of what I can see in energy forms of life around me, and the landscape and the natural systems. There's just not the words. You realize there aren't the right words in some languages. Try and talk to an Amazonian Indian about ice and snow. Try and talk to an Eskimo about a rainforest. They haven't got any words for a rainforest. They got one word for a low growth vegetation in the bottom of Greenland. But they've got 24 words for ice and snow. They've got 36 words for white. Because they can see more white than we can. You go snowblind looking at white, an Inuit can look at. Try and describe that to an Amazonian Indian. He had no idea what the hell you're talking about. But an Amazonian Indian's got the same amount of words, like 30 words for forest. That an Inuit doesn't have any idea what the hell he's talking about. If you put an Inuit and an Amazonian Indian together to talk about ice and snow and rainforest, they can't talk to each other. It doesn't translate. That's an extreme. This happens across common languages. I'm sure there's Hungarian that doesn't translate to English, and English that doesn't translate to Hungarian, without whole sentences. And English is a bastard language. English is really mixed up. I don't know why it's ended up. Maybe that's why it's ended up the internet language. Have a look at instruction manuals. What's the shortest language in there? English. You know, the descriptive on other languages is much more. Portuguese is 5 times longer than English, and yet it's a Latin language. English is supposed to be a Latin language, like Spanish and French and German, Italian, and Portuguese, which is the oldest. So, communication, education, teaching people this subject has been my interest and frustration, and I'm just sharing some things with you to actually make you realize, what are you trying to do? You're trying to describe this to other people, aren't you? They've said to you, you're going on a what course? A what? A permaculture course? What kind of cult? what is it? And you've gone, oh shit, how to describe this? Like it's this, and it's kind of frustrating because you know it's more complex than you can actually really satisfy someone's inquiry. This is where we're at. And so the more we get that can kind of translate it or explain it or visually show it, the more aimed you are, the more that, you know, the more weaponry you have. You will have armories. Bill used to say, I have armories. I have an armory. In other words, I have lots of weapons. I have an armory of improbable truths. What the hell did that mean? I have an armory of improbable truth? Because he could shock people with things that weren't, it can't possibly be true what he's saying. But they were. That was his technique. To shock people with things that were improbably true. And this is 30 years ago, this is 40 years ago. This is almost 50 years ago now. We don't need to do that. It's just interesting the techniques he used. You know, it's all over the internet now. It's a lot different now. But we're still trying to explain. So this document keeps asking these questions. What is the water map? What is the access map? What is the structural map? We call it a WAS map. Water access structures. They should lay on top of each other. They will lay on top of each other. You pattern the water because you can't change the way that works. Then you pattern the access. Now, ideally, it patterns with the water, or it goes right down the middle of ridge lines, which can share the water, because access is what runs stormwater. You ask me what stormwater is. Stormwater runs off access because access is hard. It's compacted. You're running cars on it. You're running animals on it. You're running people on it. It's packing the soil. So it's packing the ground. Whether it's hardware or it's just compacted dirt, it runs off. Okay, you've got to design it so it doesn't cause erosion. It costs more work in designing and construction and maintenance. Your job is to make it as functional as possible with the minimum cost over the lifetime of the work. I want to do minimum amount of work for maximum longevity. I want to design this thing once. I don't mind if it takes longer to design it. If it's 10 days instead of 1 day, fine. If it's going to last 100 years instead of 10, great. Those 10 days were worth that 100 years. You just earned 100 years worth of credit. Unreal. Unreal. That's extending entropic. That's slowing the entropic loss of your system. Everything we're doing is trying to stop the energy draining out of our system. Everything we're doing out there is trying to hold the energy in the system for longer so we get to use it. It always sinks. You sink. We all sink. We all drop out of the system. All living things die. All energy drops out of a system. How long can you hold it? If you've got a lot of good work to do in permaculture, I want you to live between more than 100. Right? You're going to live a long time, so you keep doing it and helping other people do it. Right? It used to take me 50. I could teach 50 students face to face really well. I've taught a lot more, sometimes 100, 120, 150. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of people to organise, but 50 students is a kind of average. 5 courses a year, you wear yourself out, but you can do it. 5 2-week courses, 5 times a year. You know, you get pretty worn on that, but you can do it. 150 students a year, can be doing a bit of good. My online course, I do over 1,500. I do 10 years worth of students a year. I'm 60 years in front. 70, 80 years in front now, I think. That's a bit of embodied energy. That's a bit of extended energy within a system. Like my energy to those students, you know, it's been extended through that process. It's appropriate technology. It's what we're doing. Now, if we have to use the technology that's appropriate, that extends the energy in a system, we're slowing down the entropic loss of energy. We're holding the energy longer in a system. It's just a way to think.
I've got a quick question for you. So, what's your how does your thinking change when you come to a land that doesn't have any structures versus a land that already has structures? Would you still do the WASP thinking of the water active structures?
Yeah.
If there's already structures.
Well, the structures are then already in position, so you're compromising about the structures. So your water access and structural positions, including the ones that are still in position and are in position that you inherit in a design. Now, if they're absolutely awful, then you might do a big retrofit. You need our architect over there come and do a reno, right, and retrofit design. So draw the line. You just give me a great example. At a certain point, I can go, that building's terrible, and I advise you redesign it. I think this is the problem, but I am not an architect. But I can give you my general idea of it. It's facing the wrong way. It's made out of the wrong materials. It's the wrong design. It's not worth knocking down, let's say. Now, I know an architect in Hungary who could probably give you a good design, right? So I ring our mate up over there. I just drew my line. I'm not Superman. It's a phenomenon of permaculture where you think we're Superman. You're not Superman. Draw the line. Oh, but is it not legal? I got a mate who's a lawyer. Right? I draw the line. I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to be a lawyer. She's a lawyer, right? And you know, it used to be a business. It's got to think fits a legal brief. Okay, get a permaculture lawyer in right now and the architect and see if we can get this done. So you have to have lines drawn around you as a designer. I'm not a botanist. I can name a few Latin species and you can all learn to do that. It's not hard. Don't get worried about that one. I didn't know one Latin name in 1983. It's fun after all. But at a certain point, the legal might say, you need a botanic survey. Okay, then I need a signed off botanist. So you might, wherever you're designing in your area, you might know, there is a botanist we use. There is a landscape architect we use who draws up plants with landscape quality architect. There is a town planner because we're doing a community in Czech Republic. Where is he? No, Slovakia. Slovakia. You've got your hood off. I don't recognise you with hair. Right? So you need a town planner, probably, because the town planner gives you the red flags. Oh, no, in the town plan you can't do this, you can't do that. These are your lines. In the center of it is your design ability to pull things together. I'm saying this is your skill as a designer. But you have these other professionals around you. You might not be an earth mover. We need an earth mover. He's clanging away over there. We're not going to dig that down. I can't drive the earth movement equipment. I can, but I'm not good at it. I've done a bit. My wife's quite good. She does it more than I do because she gets the chance. In fact, she might be on there in a minute. Right. But these are your professionals. Right. So the house, there are houses. Okay, they're a big investment. They're already there. You've got an Edwardian manor on your job and a stable that's been retrofitted and other things. They're there. We're not going to pull them down. Okay, we now compromise around those. Water, access, structural positions. Either new structures might be needed. Okay, they're a design brief. The other ones we're going to work around them. We're going to improve them if we're needed, etc. So once you got through water access structures, once you do the water, the access, on contour or down ridge lines if possible, or close to contour down ridge lines, you can line it with water, and structural positions become obvious, or the structures are already there. Then you go on to zone planning, which is really energy from the middle out. What is the really, really fine energy of fast-moving living systems? That's zone 1, right in close. It says zone 0. I don't do zone 0 much. I'm not an interior decorator. I don't care what colour you have your toilet doorknobs. I don't care too much about it. Some people do. They get inside a house and they start designing the inside of a house. Some people even just talk about zone 0, 0. The inner person. I'm definitely not going in there. Right. I don't care whether you do yoga, meditation, pray every 5 minutes. Whatever. Your metaphysics is your metaphysics. It's unproven science. It's a belief system. Whatever. It's yours. I don't care. Like, don't worry me. As long as you're not, as long as you live within the ethics of permaculture, you believe in caring for the earth, caring for people, and returning unnecessary amounts of surplus to people caring earth care. You're fine with me. If you start asking me to do something outside of that, you can have your money back. I don't need it. I don't need to work for you. I don't want to work for you. I don't need to work for you. I don't need that job. I'd rather go home and starve and not have any work than do that. I don't need that work. So it's ethical first. Ethical design science is what we do. And I don't teach metaphysics. Right? If you can't prove it to me, then I don't need to teach it. We have to stay within the proven science, because that's what the problem is with the world. Without going to metaphysics, unproven science, which is often all your belief systems are metaphysics. If you could prove there was a God, you wouldn't have to believe in him, right? Yeah. If God queued up and talked to us every day and made themselves obvious to us, then who would believe in who? Right? You wouldn't have to believe. No, it's not. That's not the way belief systems work. So, zone 1 is like that space outside the house, really, really close, really, really small. It's the smallest zone. It's the most intense zone. It has the most fast-moving elements, and it has precious elements. It has mostly hardware. It's really quick. It's that human nest. It only happens with people. Without people, it dies. It's people orientated, absolute. You are 100% the teacher. You are the one that propagates zone 1. It doesn't happen without you. Walk away from it, it falls apart. Doesn't take long. Zone 2 is an ecosystem assembly. You are now partnering with an ecosystem. It's not that big, but it's still a lot bigger than zone 1, and it's involved with long-term perennial elements like trees. And here you have some animals that are more open and free-ranging. You only have quiet animals in zone 1. Zone 2 is much bigger, much broader, and quite a lot rougher. And the jobs are larger and longer cycle. Then you go zone 3, and it's larger again, potentially. And the animals are larger, the systems are broader, they're rougher. You're partnered with a bigger cycle. It's a much broader system. It's more like a farm now. Zone 3 is like a farm. It's more the farm. And zone 4 is forestry. Hey, some kind of forest, or a whole lot of different types of forest. A mixture of forest elements. And zone 5 is the wilderness. And you now are the learner, you're the student, you're the visitor. It's the teacher. You're not the teacher anymore. You're the visitor. You're the student. As soon as you come back into zone 4, hey, you're still partly the teacher, but majorly you're dependent on the natural system. And you can't stop the natural system there. It's a bloody forest. It's full of animals and birds and stuff. It's functioning very well on its own, thank you very much. And way after you die, it can go on way after you're gone. Way, way, way after you're gone. It won't stop for a very long time, if ever. And then zone 3, it's going backwards. Zone 3, zone 2, zone 1, you're 100% teacher. It's all yours. Without you, it falls apart completely. Zone 2, you could probably leave it 10 years. Probably leave it 20 years and recover it reasonably easy. A couple of days work, get it all trimmed up, be okay. Pretty rugged. Now this is the zones. And it all depends how much energy you have in the middle. You have, like 10 kids and they're all going to stay home, or you have 3 or 4 families, you have a small village, or you just have a normal family, small family. There's no point in making a 5-acre zone 1. You're never going to get out of it. Never going to get to zone 2. Mum, dad and 3 kids, zone 1's probably about 1,000 square meters. Quarter of an acre, in the old measurement. 1,000 square meters, tenth of a hectare. Zone 2 is probably no more than a hectare. Zone 3 could be quite a lot bigger, and Zone 4 could be quite large. I mean, the harvest in Zone 4 is like 25-year harvest minimum. Could be 50-year harvest. You might not even see it if you're the one who implements it. You might be leaving Zone 4 for your grandkids. But they'd have free housing forever. They have free forest materials forever from then on. Or your community will have free housing or free structural material forever. It's kind of crazy we have to pay for building material. It is. It's kind of weird. Why do you have to pay for a house? Like the materials of a house. Why do you have to go into debt for life to build a house that isn't going to probably last your life? Like modern houses don't often last the amount of time you go into debt to buy them. Is that right? On architecture, that's right, isn't it? You go into debt for longer than the house is going to last. Who the hell came up with that idea? I was telling people, I was in a course in Yemen and people were saying to me, well, our families lived in the same house for 1,000 years. And half the students in the class put their hand up and said, mine too. 1,000 years? What? You know, like we didn't even know the history of 1,000 years of Hungary almost, you know. But we've done the same thing with food, didn't we? Who came up with the idea of growing our food on poison? And then wondering if it was making us sick. And then wondering why pharmaceutical companies and chemical companies make so much money. Why, like, how did we get that done? Not really. How come nobody's done the research? You want to do some interesting research? Just check out where the richest farmers are in Hungary. And check out if you've got most cancer right there. Then go to every country you like on the whole planet and do the same research. And just wonder why you keep coming up with the same result. Wherever you have the richest farmers, you have the most cancer per capita. That's just cancer, but it's one that's pretty scary for people. It doesn't matter which country. It doesn't matter if it's the richest country or it's Bangladesh or it's Pakistan or India. It's the Punjab in India, and a train leaves every day to Chennai called the cancer train. You have the richest farmers. You have most cancer per capita. And it's the same in Australia. It's northwest Tasmania. Doesn't matter. Like, why isn't that kind of obvious? Like, who's restricting that research and the exposure of that? People who have a lot of investment in both ends of the health story. Yeah, so by the time we get through all our zones and we have a zone map, then we go on to demonstrate your understanding of the module. So a species list, detailed description and final drawings, and a plant quantity list, and that submits your final design exercise. So on our form, which I say I'll share with you if you want, we have all these questions, and we make it easy. Like there's multi-answer questionnaires you can tick when it's a live document, but it's still just as useful as a PDF. So we're making it easy for people along this design journey, because it's quite a journey. How did you find it? It's quite a journey.
It wasn't easy to fill out because it requires a lot of thinking, and you ask yourself questions like you don't even know what you want. You find out if you're just because there are a lot of questions that you never even ask yourself that you see in the document.
Who were you designing for? Yourself?
Myself, and that's what makes it difficult, because you have to take yourself outside.
Yourself.
Yeah.
Don't design for yourself until you've got a lot of practice. I tell my students, don't finish the PDC and design your own property. design 4 to 6 people first, even if it's for free, then you reflect back at yourself and you kind of start to get honest with yourself, because we're not honest with ourselves. We're in the way of our own ability to design. It's difficult.
Yep.
So you're asking yourself questions and then trying to get yourself out of the way.
I was trying to look at the project as designing, like doing, first of all, as if I was designing for someone else. But then I had to remember also to ask me if that's what I wanted to do. Because you can get fixated on something you really want, which may not be practical, but you want it just because you have an idea that you want it.
It's a beautiful example. This is what you get as a consultant. You come into a property and they go, but I just want a giraffe. So like they're paying you, right? So you can't say, look, you're an idiot, right? Because they're not going to get paid. So you have to be very diplomatic about, listen, giraffes, right? What do I know about giraffes? Quick. They eat this much, you know, or something, you know, like it's just, and what's the fencing going to look like? You know, you're going to need 20-meter fences, you know. None of your trees are going to survive unless they're over 20 feet high, you know. It's like, it's just people get fixated and they can't let it go. They can't put the back down. So as a consultant, you have to be very diplomatic about how you talk to your client. I mean, one of the first things you have to ask a client, without saying it this way, how much money you got, how much time you got, how much experience you got. Which is like saying, how rich are you? Right? How much time you got? Right? How busy are you? And how dumb are you, or how much you know? Because I can only design up to your comprehension. And if you've either got time or you've got money, one or the other, because if you've got no time and no money, it's going to take a lot longer to do this job for you. You know, if people come and say, oh, I want all this stuff. I tell you, how are you going to finance this job, sir? Oh, well, you've got a lot of capital, you're going to capitalise this, okay. No, I haven't got any spare cash, no. I've got to earn it as I go. Right, so how are we going to earn it as we go? Right, so, and how much time do you have? Like, you're going to be there all the time? You're working full time on the property? Oh, no, just going to come every other weekend. So you're going to come every other weekend, right? And you haven't got any money. It's going to take a long time. Now you have a lot of time, but not a lot of money. It's not too bad. Or you have a lot of money, not a lot of time, but you can employ other people to do it. It's one or the other. Well, you're not a magician. How can you just materialize all this stuff? And then you've got to know what climate, what landscape, and all this other stuff. It's not magic. It's just straightforward common sense, actually. But you're putting this assembly together around the requirements of a client that then has to be quite real. And if they've then got some fixation of giraffes or penguins or something, it's like, I got to talk them out of this. So not everybody wants to be a consultant, because you've got to be a bit of an educator, a bit of a communicator, up to the level of the client's comprehension. It's immoral to start talking to them and they don't understand what you're saying. What I'm saying about the new mapping systems we're using, it gives clients more comprehension. It allows them to read landscape we can read. So I will often help people a lot, and over the years, you know, make mistakes, but I've learned to like be able to be careful about how I talk to a client. And within an hour, they will say to me, I think you've saved me $10,000. And I'm not charging that. I'm charging like $4,000 or something like that for a big consultancy. Within an hour, you've saved me 10 grand. At the end of the day, they say, you saved me 50 grand. Like, this is really good value for money. I would have done all this and made all those mistakes and made my life a nightmare. And I said, what about the marriage? I think you've saved my marriage. I said, well, that's priceless. You need to give me extra money. Many times people say to me, I think you've saved my marriage. Because it would have been a problem what they were thinking about doing. It would have caused so many issues. And that's really good to save someone's relationship in their marriage, because, you know, stable community comes from like stable relationships. You know, like you can't have, 1 in 3 marriages collapse and have a stable community. You can't. You gotta have stable relationships. And we didn't even think about that, but that's all part of having sustainable living. That we can share and with ourselves, our partners, our community, our family. It is a big sharing experience. So, so there's big one here. This client's familiarity with permaculture, select one. Is it low? Is it medium? Is it high? That's stuff you need to know. And then we go on. There's lots here that I can share with you. Any questions about this type of approach? I mean, I think it's gold. It's very fast. I'm moving you very fast through what would be a whole book into what do you do? When you go in and design, when you cut through all that and ask, what do you need to do for yourself? That's what I'm trying to get to. You can go through it in your own time.
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
What do you think about this as an approach? I'm trying to educate you at super fast speed here of mainframe design. This is mainframe. This is what I call mainframe. The only thing I come out with at the end of this is a mainframe design. I'm not going to tell you how many basil, lettuce and tomatoes go together as a companion with nasturtium and marigolds. I'm not going to do that. I know that is a set of comparisons, but that's kind of spoiling your story. You can find that out. You don't need to know that. That doesn't do you any good at all. It's nice to know about companion planting. It's nice to know little bits of trivia like mulberry and grapes are a companion. I set it down in the field. It's not going to help you design. Design is design. It's not all those fiddly little bits. The devil is in the details. It's great to know all that bits of trivia. But we need design, mainframe.
Oh, yeah. I'm professionally working as a business architect. That has nothing to do with an architect, but basically I'm designing systems and processes for a big corporate. And it was incredibly difficult in the last couple of years to understand what my company requires in order to design the right processes and to use the right systems. So we spent years and years trying to collect the requirements, and then we started developing and building those processes while realizing that the customer changed or didn't clearly describe their demands. So we came up with something very similar to this, just trying to pin down the most important questions so that everybody in the team understands where the journey goes, not just us, but as well the customer. And it really helped us to come up with processes and systems that we don't have to constantly change over and over again, because we just miscommunicated and didn't understand each other. So I'm quite excited about this one, actually.
Yeah. No, that's it. Sorry, that's why my team are very business orientated. So my business partner is a Fortune 500 business consultant, award-winning Harvard lawyer, and then we have guys in the team that are just freaks. I mean, I don't know how they do what they do. I'm so lucky. So my student care. Did you communicate with student care?
A few
Samia?
questions.
Student care.
Yeah.
I have not lost a student since I've had this guy, Samir. Now, most online courses accept 2 to 5% loss at your 30-day money-back guarantee. And 10 to 15 is not unheard of. Money-back guarantee, give the money back within 30 days. Since I've had this one guy, he's in Toronto, I haven't lost anybody. Not one. That's unheard of. He can do 48,000 emails a month. I don't know, he does it. I mean, obviously there's processes, and it's all that business analysis. So we did a business analysis of why people take a permaculture course, and I have the 7 reasons why people take a permaculture course, because then we aim at that market. That our market, because you have to have a market to aim at, right, in business. Otherwise, you're just freeloading all over the place. We're aiming at the people that just heard the word permaculture. I've just heard it. I don't know what it is. I just heard this word permaculture. That's our market. That's who we're aiming at. Other people might aim at whoever, or maybe they're not aiming. I don't know. Many people aren't. Permaculture people aren't very business savvy.
That Mum says to finish.
What? Oh, they're going earth moving.
You've gone 15 minutes over time.
4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, mate. I was gonna appoint a timekeeper, but you're doing a good job. Yeah. Right. 1 second. Give me 5 quick minutes. He's looking for Mum. I was going to appoint you one as timekeepers. I'm just going to give you a quick flash at something. Very quickly. Just minimize this. Maximize this. Oh. How big is that on the screen? Not too bad. You can see that all right?
Can you tell?
That's good.
Yeah? That is Zaytuna Farm, where I live. In fact, I live in there where that blue dot is. My house is being built on that satellite photo event. Those are 1 meter contours with a satellite photo over the top, accurate within 50 millimeters, vertical and horizontal. It's a missile coordinate. So, that's a true satellite photo. If you zoom in with full pixels, which this isn't because I'm having to download, right, and that'd be too much, I could read the sign on your t-shirt. So, like, it's not like a little bit of guesswork here. Now, I'm in Affinity. Any of you, I mean, this isn't baby boomer talking to you, and I'm in Affinity, right? I'm in this program Affinity, right, which is I have Affinity Photo 2 up in front of you. So there's a photo designer, and there's 3 different programs in there. It's like AutoCAD, right? What do you use in your architecture? AutoCAD? It's like that, except you don't pay every year, you pay once, which is nice. The university's got a handle on that with you. So then if we just put another layer on it and go, boom, that's the same map with aspect. Now, and then I can use all these different brushes and all these different colors. And I could make it opaque if I wanted. So I could change the opacity of that over the other map. I could change that 100% down to 2%. You can see the other map underneath it. Now, that is light and shade, right? So the red is in full sun and the blue is in almost full shade. So that's an aspect map. So now, instead of having to do that for yourself on a map and go, oh, this is south, this is north, this is whatever. In the southern hemisphere, north is sunny, of course. Our sun is in the north side of our sky in the southern hemisphere. But quickly you can see, oh, sun, shade, whatever, right? For a client, like if your property's here, you know what's in the sun, what's in the shade, etc. And then degrees of that. And then I can go, oh, that's at a different scale, right? But that's a boundary map. So I'll cover that up. That's a boundary map within Zaytuna Farm. So that's the different boundaries inside our community. And then I go again. Right? That's an altitude map, like you had in your atlas. Red's high, blue's low. But then I go, bang. That's NASA. That's GRACE. That's the GRACE mission. Gravity resource. That's ground penetrating LiDAR, showing you where the soil is wet and the aquifers are wet and areas are dry. The red is dry, the blue is wet in the ground. This is ground penetration LiDAR. That's our village next door. We're here. And then that's my own map. That's an access map showing you access across the property. This is slope with the trees. So now, dark green is nearly flat, 0 to 2 degrees. Light green is 2 to 4. Yellow is 4 to 8. And then orange is 8 to 12. And then as we go to red, it goes from 18 to 90. Now, you don't want to be on the red. Red needs to be forested. If you want to grow crops in an open field with big production, you want to be between 0 and 2. If you can cause erosion between 0 and 2 degrees, you're a maniac. Right? It's very hard to make 0 to 2 degrees erode. Right? But so you can translate the slopes here to what should be used. If you go again to just slope, that's without the trees. That's the whole landscape without the trees of slope. If you've got that dark red, it's way too steep to be anything but permanently in trees forever. It should be biosphere reserve, never to be mucked about with. Whatever trees, it doesn't matter. Get the damn thing covered. It's not stable. That's an accepted number worldwide. 18 degrees and steeper should be trees. The lowest plateau was recovered like this in China. So going right down to dark green and light green, that's good farming country. That's good productive country. That's the country we should be on, the dark green and light green. When we get into the yellow, you can have farm forestry, but you want long-term forest. You don't want forest you're mucking about with. When we get to the light yellow, hey, you can have orchards. You want to make sure there's a bit of erosion control. You don't want it to be just bare soil orchard. You need like careful orchards. Of course you can put orchards on the flat, but you can put crops on the flat if you want. This translates the landscape in relation to slope, which is awesome. This was the first map I made when I started working with LiDAR. This is my map. I made this. And then we go, well, what happens if there's trees in the way? Okay, well, put the damn trees in there. So we went, there's slope with trees. Oh, it's already got trees. Some of it's already got trees. Some of it hasn't. Okay, which bits we need to tree? Oh, no. It's the misses.
Hello.
Salam alaikum.
Salam. I'm leaving. I need Latifa, and Esther, she said you meant to finish at 4.
Why?
It's 4. It's
Okay.
almost 4:30.
All right, we're going out to look at the Earth Mover. I'm right there.
All right, let Latifa come because I'm having a left with Esther, and you coming with Esther.
I'm gonna go in the paddock with you.
She's going in the
All right.
paddock, she says, with Estefan.
All right, she's staying with you then. I'm leaving. All
Okay.
right, see you guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Yeah.
No, where? Uh-oh. Where? Yeah. So, yeah, and then we go back. Just slope, and then we got ruggedness. It's a new version of slope. So sometimes we got slope, but then we got rugged stuff. We got stuff where it's all lumpy and rocky and difficult to deal with. It's still slope, but it's irregular slope. Right, so that's another variation. And then I've got what I call sketching. Now on sketching, it's a faded back contour map. It's a faded, not contour, it's a faded back satellite map. It's all that stuff is opaque behind the contours. Now I can draw on it and see what's underneath it. I can put this all up in front of a client and switch layers and fade layers and play in like explaining what we've got in front of you. And then I can go swales. See the swales come up? I can go, oh, I won't do it straight away. I can do
Gav, are swales always applicable, sort of regardless of slope?
No. If you have,
Like if there's very flat ground, would you still apply swales?
flat ground is the best place for swales because you gain more water for less, more bang for your buck.
And if it's over 18 degrees, then you do a terrace?
Yeah, over 10 degrees, you out.
You terrace?
It starts to get dodgy at 18 degrees. Definitely, right, it's getting a bit steep, too steep. And there are times when you jump through steep sections to get to next sections and go very carefully. But the lower, the flatter it is, the more water you hold for less earthworks. So you get more water for the dollar. So flat country is never perfectly flat. And you put a mound up this high, you get 100 metres of water behind it. Tell me how you get 100 metres of water behind here. You get 1 metre of water behind there. For the same earthworks, you get 100 metres down here. Don't you? You got 101 fall, very flat slope, 101. You get a 1 metre mound up, put water behind it, you got 100 metres of water sitting behind that mound. You got a 10 to 1 slope, you put a 1 metre mound up, you got 1 metres of water sitting behind it. And you can't move left or right on that steep slope. You've got to stay right on. Where if you're on flat country, if you go uphill a bit, you just go down a bit. If you go downhill a bit, you just go up a bit on the trench. You can go left or right across the slope on flat country a little bit, a few meters, and you could adjust the bottom of the swell and still keep it level and just change the height of the mound a bit. Can't do that on hill country. Big advantages to being on flatter country. But if you're Richard Perkins and you're at latitude 60, you're only 6 degrees from the Arctic Circle, there's no damn evaporation. You don't even need irrigation. If you're that cold that you're most of the year, you don't have any evaporation. I mean, when your growing season is 90 to 120 days, who needs swales? You don't even need irrigation. So there are points in the cold areas where you don't need that stuff because you don't need to rehydrate. As you get hotter summers and drier conditions, swales are incredible rehydration systems and they do support dams. If you connect them to dams, you don't have to. So when you here, if I go dams with names, bang, all the dams with names come up. So there are all the dams on Zaytuna Farm with their names. So the swales are there, but I put them back, so I coloured them on and off. There's the dams on and off. And then I can do, there are the spillways. Red ones are emergency spillways. Red and blue are emergency spillways. Blue and white are normal spillways. Your everyday spillway. And then I put crossing pipes. And look how many crossing pipes there are to get over swales and driveways and things that direct water. This is hardware. This is what makes a place run without any erosion or damage and controls water flows. The crossing pipes under the roads. You're driving over crossing pipes all the time on the main roads. But this is within a property. That's a complicated property, but look how many yellow dots, crosses there are on there. And then I have swivel pipes. These are the purple ones that allow me to drop water, raise water through swales and dams. I can drop a dam, I can drop a swale, I can fill a swale, I can flood a swale just with a simple slipping joint on a plumbing pipe. Yes. Salam.
Esteban, I totally covered with the student to see the dam. And Latifa not with him. Where's Latifa?
She's with me, packing up my bag.
Alrighty. She'll stay with you then. Okay, I'll see you soon. Don't be late, honey, okay?
No, I wouldn't dream of being late.
Not an hour, alright?
Not, yeah,
I'm not listening.
no, I wouldn't dream. Oh. Someone has to be my timekeeper. I'm not good. I just get carried away. Right, so swivel pipes, and then I've got boundaries. boundaries, 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 and boundaries.
What did you
Those are the shareholders?
Yeah,
Oh.
that's their personal use area. I have an outside boundary. Personal use area is inside, and then I have an ecotourism here that we all share. So it's owned by a company, and everyone has a share in the company. So there's a certain amount. There's a company. I had to sell the property to Nadia, and I had to sell the property to ourselves because we were the only shareholders. We created a company called Alcaltha, and it owns it. Then we sold the company, sold the property to the company, and had to pay the sales tax on it, selling it to ourselves. But the company has 16 shares, 2 per household. It's only allowed to have 8 households. That's town planning in our area. So we're allowed 8 households on the property. We have 2 shares per household, 16 shares. Only Nadia and I were shareholders. And then we sold the shares. And everybody owns the property. And a share in the income generator, which is this section here, which is a campsite and a shower toilet block and a classroom.
It's like the educational.
Yeah, there's actually a licensed restaurant as well. There's a large campsite, camping shelters, there's a dairy, there's car parks, and there's a big commercial shed at the top. And it's all on its own solar. It's got its own solar system because everybody, all shareholders have their own solar. And this is we call it the Commons, like the House of Commons in England, right? So the Commons has its own power system, its own water system. It has 3 giant water tanks that are 24,000 gallon tanks. So it's 3 of those.
Okay,
That's
I guess the houses on site are also sustainable, like
up to the shareholder.
Oh, it's up to them how they want
It's
to.
their damn house. I ain't building it for them.
Mm.
And they lease the right to build a house. They don't.
But isn't it not kind of mandatory for them to follow those kind of concepts?
Yeah. There's an 84-page constitution of settlement. If you buy into the property, you agree to live within this constitution. It's an 84-page document which I and a lawyer wrote, but that lawyer had done more community titles than anybody on planet Earth. And the town planner I work with has done more community town plans than anyone on planet Earth. Because we have more communities in my region than anywhere on planet Earth. Northern New South Wales is the largest density of communities on Earth. So I was very lucky to work with the lawyer, who was my lawyer anyway. They're the old boys in the area. They're all retirement age now. We're all the same age.
And you call this constitution?
It's a constitution. It's an 84-page constitution. It's our own constitution. It's nobody else's.
It's interesting.
When
But
did
our constitution is maybe quite different to someone else's.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's specific for that place.
Yeah, we've got things other people don't have.
when did you say you bought Zaytuna?
2001. I moved on to Zaytuna and set up my first open day on a very famous day in the planet. You'll remember the day. It's called 9/11.
Oh right.
9/11 was my open day. I didn't know it was going to happen, and nobody came.
Well, I hope you did.
Yeah. So it was like, why aren't they coming? Because we weren't watching television. It was like, this is weird. Nobody's coming. Nobody did come. And then we realised
How many acres or hectares is it?
27 hectares. So I'm just showing you the mapping what it was. I'm just showing.
Somebody packed you up.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just showing you what you can show people,
Yeah.
right, in that set of layers,
Yeah.
and then how you can explain those layers to people. This is a whole new world. A whole new world. I have hundreds of designs like that from all over the world. Small and large. Some are quite simple. Some are quite complex. Depends what they want. I mean, you know, you don't want to go into constitutions and community development. That's a whole another box of dice. That's something else.
Chapter 14.
Yeah, it's definitely part of chapter 14. We're talking mainframe design and water harvesting system. So what we ought to do is go down and have a look at that earthworks and see what they found a well.
Oh, really?
You know, the big pile next to where the escort was sat, there was a big pile of looked like sticks. I thought it was just a pile of sticks and dirt. I didn't have a look in it. When they cut through it, there's the top of a well, like a concrete ring, and they thought, oh, someone's dumped a well ring here. They moved it to one side, there's a hole. And they said, what do we do with it? It's where the dam's going to go. I said, dig it out. Let's have a look what's at the bottom. Let's see how deep the well was.
Maybe it's an old gold
Yeah, that's optimism.
one. Yeah.
Metaphorically, it might be a gold mine.
Well known for my optimism.